Hey YouTube friends, I'm going to run a CBC news report this morning, September the 10th, and this is extraordinary. Things are happening now. Things are going to happen after 8 years of Fukushima. Things are going to begin to happen now. What's curious in this, well, I'll let you listen to this. I'm going to let you listen to two reports this morning out of the CBC radio regarding epic declines in sockeye salmon and all fish on the BC coast. Just listen to this.
With salmon numbers down significantly this year, BC's fishing industry is calling for emergency financial help from both the province and Ottawa. Greg Rasmussen has more.
This is a huge crisis. People need disaster relief now.
Joy Thorkelson is president of the United Fishermen and Allied Workers Union. She says it's not unusual to see ups and downs when it comes to salmon, but this year it's different, with numbers plummeting along the entire Pacific coast.
In every area and in every species, no fish.
John Helene used to fish for a living and is now mayor of the First Nations village of Lac Squams on BC's north coast.
People are scared. What are they going to do for the winter?
First Nations there and elsewhere are not even allowed to harvest fish normally set aside for their communities. And since many Indigenous people also work in commercial fishing, there's been little cash income this summer. As a result, there's a call for the government to provide emergency financial assistance for those who depend on salmon. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, New Westminster, BC.
Japan is considering a plan to dump 1 million tons of radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. The water was used to cool the reactors at the Fukushima nuclear power plant, which was devastated by a tsunami back in 2011. Elise Skura reports.
For more than 8 years, the ruined Fukushima Daiichi plant has been pouring irradiated wastewater into storage tanks. But the temporary fix won't last forever. In fact, Japan's environment minister says the country will eventually have no choice but to dilute the tainted water and dump it into the ocean. The local fishing industry is not at all happy with the proposal, neither is South Korea. But Japan's top spokesperson says this is far from a done deal. Yoshihide Suga says this was merely the environment minister's personal opinion. The government is considering other options, including vaporizing the water or storing it underground. Whatever method Japan chooses, it needs to be in place by 2022. That's when the existing water tanks will run out of space. Elise Skura, CBC News, Tokyo.
All right, let me proceed with a short commentary on this news report on CBC in Canada. Now, what strikes me, obviously, is the epic decline that is now evident after 8 years of Fukushima, spilling its toxic material into the ocean, into the environment. Now, isn't it curious that a report immediately after the salmon story, the devastation of sockeye salmon and all species, as was reported, has been epically affected. Oh, gee, there's a report on Japan and the Fukushima nuclear plant and the water that is going to be diluted or aerosoled and spread into the environment. Well, I thought this was, some people may call this a truth drop. It's kind of like for a population that really has no ability to be critical in their thinking anymore. It's a kind of test, I think. This is the underlying intent. When you hear something that is so obvious, I don't need to have special insight into the meaning and the workings of the universe to realize the nefarious, the subterfuge that is right in front of us. I mean, how can you miss this, people? Honestly, it's like I listened to this and I mean, I was speechless. My jaw dropped. How obvious the reporting is, the underreporting, and combining these two, sanitizing both situations, and of course it'll be blamed on global warming. Well, climate change is the main factor of the devastation of the fish stocks in the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on Earth, the food basket on Earth, the oxygen that are produced has been decimated by one single plant, Fukushima Daiichi, the 3 melted reactors plus a building 4 storage pool missing. This material has been disseminated and is now having an effect. As people have been reporting, salmon stocks have been depleted, specifically sockeye, and even pink salmon. I believe that was quite numerous in Alaska. All these fish stocks are epically depleted, where people are asking for help. Now, of course, nobody is putting this. A few people like Dana Durnford have been warning on this. Blanche on the salmon depletions has been talking about this constantly. It is coming to fruition. This is now having to be reported. It's no longer avoidable. And in fact, the subterfuge in this is just mind-boggling to me, how the salmon stock depletion or lack of salmon immediately followed by a report on Japan. And it's like, well, what can I say? They didn't say climate change. They said Japan, Fukushima. Obviously, we have to put one and one together. They're giving it to us, people. They're giving it to us. They're saying, yes, you're right, Durnford. You're 100% right. That's what they're saying. This is what this CBC report is saying. Durnford, you're 100% right. Lonnie Clark, with her reports on Hanford, all the nuclear plants that are disseminating this material, but this one is the jewel in the crown. Fukushima is on the world tour. The world tour of Fukushima began way back. I mean, it began when they exploded in 1938, when Strassman Hahn perfected splitting the atom, if that's in fact what is happening physically. I have a great deal of questions about our physical reality and the way it's presented to us with little bumpy things on each other, the atoms that do little bumpy things to each other. All this reality, this explanation, for me, is not something that I just accept, because we're not being told the truth. Culture is a history of lies, a history of suffering, wars, and lies. This is culture. I go on about this on my channel all the time. A culture of death. We are submersed in a fishbowl. We have no clue. I mean, every now and then a fish sticks his nose out the water and says, what the hell am I in? I'm swimming in water. If my nose is dry, what's the rest of me? This happens occasionally. There are few souls on the planet that alert us to what it means to be living in this fishbowl, and artists quite often have been able to create some alerts, but this is out bloody rageous. My jaw dropped literally when I heard these two reports filed simultaneously, the epic sockeye salmon collapse and all species on the BC West Coast, something that Durnford has been hammering home every day, 24/7, every day his reports coming, talking about the epic catastrophe that is called Fukushima, and I call it Fukushima. Mythically, this is substantiated in mythology for me. It's kind of like a psychic event as much as is a physical. Of course, the physical event is first, but the psychic event is now fully in play, influencing us, going toward that cliff, that self-destructive cliff. And my conclusion is it's by design. It's an extermination. When this is so clear in our face, this is a directive. This is not something that happens by chance, like little atoms bumping together and creating what is a big bang, and then the entire cosmos appears with all its matter, and the laws governing that matter appears in an instant, in a nano instant from nothing. All these phony baloney stories, this hooey that we're continuously being overwhelmed by as children when we go to school. school, are the big person in the front that we might even have a crush on. I had a crush on my teacher telling me all this stuff. Of course I believed her. I believed everything that she said. Do we have a chance, people? Well, not in the system that we're in right now. We don't have a chance. We don't have a chance. This is so monumental, and all life on Earth is threatened. Like this woman said in the report, that every species on the BC coast fishery is missing, is gone. Yeah, my shout out to Durnford, magnificent soul, reporting daily on this catastrophe. Alerting. Well, this should be an alert, people. I mean, I'm putting this out and I'm saying, look, it's not just fictitious anymore. The reports go hand in hand. Missing fish, Fukushima. Missing fish, Fukushima, after 8 years. Hello?